Okay, so how's this for spontaneity? I'm getting ready to do a special live stream. Actually, it's not really a live stream, it's a video call that I do with my patrons. Now, normally we do these video calls twice a week on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. And that's in addition to the live stream calls that we have on the weekends, Saturdays at 3, where we do a watch party. We canceled Thursdays and this weekend's Saturday one because, ta-da, it's Thanksgiving for those of you who are watching this right now. Um, so, but I had a little spare time on my hands, so I asked everybody if they'd be interested in getting together today, for an impromptu call, and they said, yeah, we'd love to. So I have exactly 14 minutes before that starts. And I wanted to explain a little bit about the way those calls work. Basically, we get a group of patrons on there, people who subscribe and give support via Patreon. And it's at the very least, it's like being at a Star Trek convention because everybody's got an open mic and screen. It's like a Zoom call. So everybody speaks. We all interact with each other. There's no host and guests. Um, and sometimes we talk about Star Trek. The vast majority of time we talk about Star Trek. The other times that we're talking about behind the scene things like preparing for the Kickstarter that we've got ready to start out on or around January 1st. And then depending on the success of the Kickstarter, how much more additional work do I have to figure out needs to be in the stretch goals for Kickstarters? If I ask for $10 and they give me $10, then hallelujah. But if I ask for $10 and they give me 1,000, what do I do with that? Okay, so we talk a little bit about that as we try to figure out on-location shooting and stuff like that. We quite often will have guests join us that are professionals in Hollywood that don't feel comfortable being on our live streams, but being with a small contained group, not too badly. And then the last Tuesday of each month, the Tuesday night patron call opens up to members on YouTube as well. So if you're just a normal member and nothing else, then, so you can get early access to videos and stuff. Then on the last Tuesday of each month, you're also invited to these calls. And so as a result of that, it can be a slightly larger group than what I get normally with the patrons. And that's pretty much it about this call that I now have 12 minutes before. Well, the other thing I wanted to do is I sat this aside a couple days ago. I love old Star Trek stuff that's associated with our childhood. That should be nothing surprising to those of you. And when I grew up and got a real job and got a real family, anything that I had to do with Star Trek was long since sold. Stuck up on eBay, got 50 cents for it or whatever it was, it's been gone. So when I started this channel back in, oh Lord, 2021, I guess, 4 years now, I didn't have any Star Trek stuff. Nothing. Absolutely nothing left over that was a Star Trek piece of merchandise, a book, or anything. Star Trek had been out of my life for a while. In that method, I watched it each and every week as new series came out. I watched all the movies as they came out. But my days of fandom had been done. Starting this channel turned that around, as you can imagine it would, to the point that now, 4 years later, this is my job. That's all I do. I get up in the morning and I work on Trek World. I work on Star Trek stuff. I go to bed that night thinking about Star Trek stuff. I get up the next morning, do it again. To some people, that may be a grind. To me, it's heaven because I can't believe I can make a living, however modest, by doing this. And among the things that I'll do to try to bring more content to you is I go out and I buy a lot of the things that we had in our childhood and we talk about them. Okay, and most of you probably see anything. Well, I bought something the other day that when it showed up, it surprised me because I've never purchased something and then been utterly shocked when I got it that it wasn't what I remembered it to be. Okay? And that's the key here. We all have our memories of what these things were in our childhood. And I'll tell you in a minute why my memory was that way. But anyhow, I went out and I found a good deal on a copy of the Star Trek Puzzle Manual. It was published by Bantam Books, I guess, maybe Ballantine, but probably Bantam, back in the 1970s. You'll probably remember it. I bought it from the Scholastic Book Fair at school. It was one of the very first Star Trek books I ever purchased. I think I had actually found Star Trek 4 by James Blish at the local drugstore. I think I'd found it by then. It was the first book that I ever read cover to cover and bought. But I do remember that I bought a couple books from the Scholastic Book Fairs, and one of the very first ones, maybe the very first one I ever purchased from the fair, was the Star Trek Puzzle Manual. So it comes in the other day, and I pull out this package from my mailbox, and I go, what in the world is this? This is the Star Trek Puzzle Manual. I kind of feel like, you know, in Jurassic Park, where when they look in the mirror and they go, objects, you know, are closer or bigger than they appear. This thing is huge. Okay, it's a workbook format. Let me check the date, see how accurate I was on my memory. Used to belong to somebody named Larry. He paid $2 for it, he says. Bantam Books, so I was right there. James Razzie. There's a name I haven't heard since I was, well, in 60 years probably. James, if you're out there or your family's out there, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get the story behind this puzzle manual, because you're one of the few books that came out during the 70s, along with the tech manual and stuff like that, that we all had. And yet, we really don't know that much about you. And I'd like to fix that. November 1976. It says it's a first edition, which doesn't surprise me too much. It is pretty tattered, but I just don't ever remember seeing a workbook-sized version of this book before. Now, it may be that possible that the reason I remember it being so small was because of the fact, matter of fact, it's even got an inlaid photo on the front of the Enterprise, this textured. Might be because I remember I got it from Scholastic, and therefore, like a lot of book club editions, it was a much smaller book because it's cheaper produced on smaller paper. That might be it. So I'd love to hear from you. If you bought this puzzle manual and it was the same size as the Concordance or the tech manual, then let me know, because it was Bantam for all three. So there very well may be that everybody else remembers this being this size, but me, because I didn't buy it over the counter. I bought it through the Scholastic Book Fair. So, I got 7 minutes. What do you want to talk about? It's not a whole lot we could talk about, right, in 7 minutes? But I'm going to bleed this 7 minutes just to give you a little bit more to bring up some random things that I'm coming through here. I just did a video not too long ago on Lee Cole, who was one of the art directors for Phase 2 in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and that reminded me that there's another person in Star Trek production offices that's been around forever that we don't know much about, and his name, excuse me, my mouth got dry. His name is Jim Rugg, and Jim Rugg was credited with special effects on the original Star Trek television series. He did the practical effects that appear on stage. So the glowing lights in the Guardian of the Edge of Forever were not added in post-production. The prop lit up. Okay, that was him. The internet story is that he came up with the idea that actually this is much older than the internet. The original 1970s convention stories was that he was the one that came up with the concept of, for the transporter, let's try this effect, tell me what you think. Pour some like aluminum or some sprinkles in a glass, shine a light up through the bottom, stir it up, and then that gives you the shimmer effect that you need. Created practically, filmed on stage, composited in, the rest is history. So there's not a whole lot about him that's known. Hopefully you'll know a little bit more about him after you watch this video. I do recommend it highly. I had started the concept of a Star Trek Hall of Fame. I produced videos on Hua Chang and Gene Kuhn already. I actually consider Lee Cole to be part of that group. Jim Rugg is obviously the one I'm working on. He'll come up next. But you're probably going to start seeing me do little videos on what information I can find and document on some of the other people that work behind the scenes that were never the stars. They weren't the Matt Jeffries. They weren't the Gene Roddenberrys. They were everyday people like you and I that worked for one of those men. And their full-time job was Star Trek for 3 years or more. But we don't know much about them. So I'm going to try to fix that. And that's about it. I got about 3.5 minutes before I have to start my live stream, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. But thank you so much for checking in for this short video. I had to show you the puzzle manual because you wouldn't believe me. And then I will be cutting another one of these not too long from now. I'll pick a topic or leave a request down below. Thanks, guys. Take care.